So thank you for being here, and really glad to be here, and let's get going. So as soon as I saw, once it got published, the title, "Why is my body so messed up?" I thought, oh, that's kind of negative, isn't it? But the good news is that we're going to be talking a lot about what we can do about it, and so here we go. Okay, so we're all trying to figure out what the truth is, right? We're all trying to figure it out in many different areas, all the different areas of our lives. And we all are kind of like the blind men and the elephant. So we're doing the best we can. We're trying to figure it out, and we're where we are. And and it's also that we, like we were just talking about, we all come together. Many of us are passionate about various different things and become expert in various different things, and we bring those things to each other, and we try and put the pieces together and learn together. And that's what I've done in the realm of health, and I'm really excited to bring it to you. So first off, to actually make up for my somewhat negative title, but it got you guys here. Anyway, our bodies are amazing, aren't they? I mean, they really are amazing. If we just think about the fact that since we were born, and for some of us, it's more years than others, but ever since we were born, our heart has been beating and beating and beating, and we're breathing, and we make blood, and we make cells, and our body is cleaning out all kinds of toxins, and we've just got all kinds of things going on in our bodies constantly that things that are going right? And that's really exciting, because even those of us who have gone through periods of time, or maybe going through, some of you are probably going through periods of time where you really feel like crap, you really don't feel well, and just to keep that in mind, that there's magic going on in each of our bodies, because we're still here, and we're still waking up every morning, and we're still able to do what we're able to do. So I want to start with that thought, and then I want to just kind of take us through where we are with health and where we're going, and here we go. So I recently went to a conference called the American Academy of Anti-Aging, and I go to it I've probably been to it 6 or 7 times now. And it's a ginormous conference. It's in Las Vegas at the convention center. It's about 7,000 people. And it is doctors and researchers bringing together the latest in research about longevity, about health, and anyways, it's phenomenal. But one of the concepts that was brought there, and I went back, and actually it's in a book from 2012, but Medicine 1.0, 2.0, and now we're coming into Medicine 3.0. Medicine 1.0, okay, so the book that came out in 2012 doesn't quite tell it like this, but the way we were all talking at A4M really struck me, and I'm going to present that way of telling you, is that Medicine 1.0 is kind of like the Marcus Welby medicine. It's there's one doctor, people have a relationship with this doctor, the doctor's part of the family, there's an interaction. The doctor does so much, but people are expected to take care of themselves somewhat, and and people are generally eating pretty healthfully, and they're getting good exercise, that kind of thing. But generally, there's just a really good doctor-patient relationship. We've been in Medicine 2.0, I would say now, for 50, 75 years. I'm a DO, and my dad was a DO. He graduated in 1951. And I became a doctor because I loved watching him practice. He was one doctor that got to take care of generation after generation, and he got to do surgeries, and he got to deliver babies and the babies, and he had a relationship with his patients. What we're seeing, he quit medicine in the 80s. He retired. It was time also, but he retired in the 80s because insurance started to control what he was allowed to do. And the lawyers started to control what he was allowed to do. And so as time went on, and we all know what's happening now, right? Medicine 2.0. And Medicine 2.0 can be pretty frustrating because, we're also in this, United States of America, that we are in a free economy, we're in a capitalist economy, and there are a lot of things that are going right in this country, and healthcare in a lot of ways is not one of them, in my opinion. I mean, on one hand, if I were to have a car accident or heart attack or something, there's no place I'd rather be than at the doorstep of an American ER. But for long-term health issues, it's becoming another story. So Medicine 3.0 is what we're going to be talking about. And Medicine 3.0 is the medicine of the future, but the future has already started. And that's a really exciting thing. So Medicine 3.0 is, and I'll explain it kind of when we get to the end, but Medicine 3.0 starts to resolve a lot of these issues and starts to see the pendulum coming from one side and then coming back. And it's a more practical, more person-centered, more intelligent way of practicing medicine. So about our medical system, I just wanted to point this out, that humans have, we can argue over how long humans have been on this planet. I'm going to say humanoids have been on for approximately 300,000 years. Medicine 2.0 has been around for about 150 years. So if we look at it like that, I mean, what was happening 200,000 years ago? So anyway, just putting it all in perspective. Some people want to know who I am, and this is all on my website. Some people just like that. I've got degrees, and I'm a physician. I'm board certified in a few different things, and I just wanted to put that up there so for people who wanted to see it. My first job was on the Navajo Indian Reservation. I was 27 years old. That's me in my office, and I was in a T-shirt. I don't know why, but I was 27 years old. And I was so excited because I had learned everything I thought I needed to learn to start being a doctor and to start really helping people. And I learned anatomy and physiology and biochemistry and cell biology and all this stuff. And I got to the where I was working, and even though it was public health service, which is better than many, what I was finding that my job was to diagnose and then to get out my toolbox and figure out what I needed to do. And the toolbox, if I'm not a surgeon, was basically medication. And on the Navajo Reservation, this was a people who had been, doing their own thing for thousands of years until westward expansion and everything changed, and then they became more sedentary. Grocery stores popped up. The massive grocery stores in our town had a Taco Bell and a Burger King, and all this stuff, and televisions and everything, and everybody's lives changed. And we started seeing more diabetes, more heart disease. I think in 1989, I was coming from Philadelphia, and one of my first patients in the emergency room was having a heart attack. And I called my backup and I said, "This guy's having a heart attack. Where do we send him? We didn't have a hospital, so we had to refer, and I didn't really know what to do. So and he said, "This person cannot be having a heart attack because nobody has heart attacks around here." And sure enough, that was the first MI that, that our group of doctors had seen. And from then, and for the next 2 years while I was there, we were just seeing one after another, and it became really plain, as did obesity, as did diabetes, and all of that kind of thing. And it was a real wake-up call for me, because I was just looking for the clock because I want to stay on time. I'm hoping to go about an hour, 70 minutes at the most, but hopefully an hour, just for those of you who wanted to know. So it was kind of like, it was a wake-up call for me, because I really realized, here we are taking care of people at the very end of their line. Their dis-ease processes have already been happening, and all I'm doing is seeing them every month and giving them one more pill and one more pill and one more pill, maybe a little bit of hope. But I'm not doing much more than that. And I realized that I could not have a career like that. I could not practice medicine like that. So I left. That's a picture of me, by the way, in the Anasazi ruins. I tried to find some pictures really quickly last night. Anyway, I realized that I couldn't do what I thought I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. And I needed to start looking at how I could help people to, as they say, go upstream before they come downstream with terrible illness that is really hard to reverse. Go upstream and help people to figure out what's going on at the deepest levels in their bodies, so that they can catch it then and do something about it then, so that they don't have to be dealing with the diabetes and the heart disease and that kind of thing. So I turned around. After a couple of years, I went to Johns Hopkins. I did a residency in public health and preventive medicine. I did a master's in public health, and then I worked for CDC for a couple of years, and got into the world of prevention. And then in the 1990s, I started looking at, well, I'll tell you in just a minute. So this is our world of medicine, and this is kind of the toolbox right now that most MDs and DOs have. Is they've got the hospitals, they've got procedures, and they've got medications, and we all kind of know what's going on. But what's going on? So what's going on in the United States is that even though we have by far the most expensive medical system in the world, we are, depending on what you're studying, somewhere between 29th and 39th in so many factors, in how long we live, in infant mortality, in maternal mortality, all kinds of things. Any marker you're going to look up, we're pretty close to the bottom of the developed countries, even though we spend way more in healthcare than anywhere else. But worse than that is we have epidemics of just about everything, right? We have epidemics of more than 35% of our country is obese. More than 70% is overweight. We have epidemics of autoimmune issues, of autoimmune issues like Hashimoto's thyroiditis and rheumatoid arthritis and ulcerative colitis. We have epidemics of degenerative neurologic issues like Parkinson's and MS. We have fibromyalgia, we have chronic fatigue, now we have long COVID, but we have epidemics of cancer, heart disease. Everything is on the rise in our country. And so, really we have to ask ourselves what's going on. And I know, well, I can tell I'm sitting in front of a really bright group of people, a really intelligent group of people, and I'm sure that you guys can give me your opinions about what's going on. But I'm not allowed to do that because I have to keep talking until the end when we can have a conversation because of the camera. But what I'm going to say is, in my opinion, it's a combination of doctors do go to medical school because they want to help people. They mean well. They want to do good things in the world. Many of them, most of them. But what is happening is that the medical system is run by the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry. And right now, the insurance companies tell us what we're allowed to. What tests we're allowed to order, what we're allowed to prescribe, whether it's medications or surgeries or other procedures or anything like that. The insurance companies are really in charge of what doctors are allowed to do, and also the pharmaceutical companies are also in charge of pharmaceutical. So who pays for doctors' educations? Who pays for doctors when the conferences, right? The pharmaceutical companies that come and talk about their drugs. Well, they come and talk about their drugs, but they say, well, if I'm going to come talk about my drug, then I can't have anybody talking about anything natural that competes with that drug. So that's why doctors aren't learning about bioidentical hormones. They're not learning about herbs and about things that can be done that are natural because unless they're going to special conferences like I had the privilege of going to from the early 1990s, they're not going to learn about it in their programs. And if they're not learning about it, then when their patients are asking them about, like, oh, what do you think about acupuncture? Or what do you think about bioidentical hormones? Or this kind of thing, they're going to say, well, I don't trust it. I don't trust it because I don't know about it, and I can't, it's not under my licensure to tell you that it's okay to do, so don't do it. Or do it at your own risk, but most of them say don't do it, right? So that's what's going on. And so now let's get to some more fun stuff. So has anybody heard of functional medicine? Okay, so great. So functional medicine was actually, the term was coined in our little town in 1990 by Dr. Jeffrey Bland, who is a naturopath extraordinaire. He's a brilliant man. He's still doing his thing. I don't know how old he is. He's probably close to 80. He lives in the Seattle area. And he was a good friend of Dr. David Jones, who was a physician in this town. Some of you might have known him, and who is now retired. And just to throw names, Dr. Michael Stone, Dr. Leslie Stone also came into the functional medicine world early on. But what is functional medicine? For those who don't know, functional medicine is basically root cause medicine. So it basically takes the way we look at a body and kind of turns it upside down. Because when we look at a body, when a typical doctor looks at a body, they're going to be all up here. They're going to be all in the trees with all of the different branches. So the cardiologist is going to look at the heart, and the dermatologist is going to look at the skin, and the endocrinologist is going to look at the hormones, and the pulmonologist is going to look at the lungs. And they're just going to look at the symptoms that are all the way down the line there, because that's what they're trained to do. And they've got really fancy medications and really fancy procedures that can keep you alive when you're on the brink of death. And they can also keep you alive for years past when your body, might have pooped out. So there's good about it. But what functional medicine does is functional medicine is at the base. Functional medicine's at the base. What is it that actually is behind all of these symptoms that are going on? What's actually going on in the depths of the body? And so under here, you can't really read it, but it says things like sleep and exercise and nutrition, and this, the basics of lifestyle, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But also, and I put this in here right here, but because this is talked about a lot in functional medicine, it happened to be absent on this particular chart. But body systems integration, how all of the different systems in our bodies are integrated, how everything plays off of everything else. And it's really complicated, but on the other hand, when it comes down to it, it can also be pretty simple. So that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. I'm a functional medicine doc. I was certified by the Institute of Functional Medicine, and you can call it many different things. Root cause medicine is pretty much identical. And then Dr. Bland is now using a term called personalized lifestyle medicine. So when I discovered that, when I discovered that everything has a root cause, and that if we figure out what's at the root of what's going on in our bodies, we can turn it around. That was me. I mean, it's not really me, but I had so much fun with AI this weekend. But anyway, that could be me. I just wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And the last thing I did in Rogue Valley in a brick and mortar was Rosa Transformational Health. And these are some of the crew members here. Some of you might recognize Dr. Mona Tara all the way there on the right. She and I started Rosa together. And this is us standing on the rooftop of a 4-story building in Medford where we had our office. And I finally got to practice the kind of medicine that I really believed in. And we worked with about 600 people at Rosa, and it was amazing because I got to get up every morning. Like excited to go into work because I would hear another story about somebody who had some sort of a breakthrough, about somebody who doesn't have to have that hip replacement or doesn't have the rash anymore, or somebody who said goodbye to all of their inflammation and that kind of thing. And anyway, that was really cool. So here I am again. We closed it during the pandemic, and since then I've been kind of figuring out how I'm going to move forward with all this stuff. And now I'm really happy to kind of be on the other side of that and starting to come back into town and work with people again. So. Anyway, so now we still have Rosa Health, but it's a mentoring. It's mentoring. I'm not doing medicine anymore, except for just a little bit, but mostly I'm just doing a lot of education and mentoring and helping people to empower themselves through education and through resources and that kind of thing. So, how does a healthy body become challenged? So, there are lots of different diagrams that are available to us, and many of them have good merit. This is one that I created for the purposes of this talk, and hopefully you'll like it. But the balance of health and healing, so I used to call it the triad of health or illness, and it kind of is like that. But basically, I'm going to introduce to you 5 different pretty big concepts that go into that really all need to be in balance in order for us to have health. So when we're feeling like crap, when we're feeling fatigued or brain foggy, or we're gaining all this weight that we can't figure out how we're gaining it, or something in our numbers, our cholesterol, our heart, not doing so well, we're dealing with autoimmune issues or inflammatory issues, any of these things, cancer, any of these things, we need to be looking at this whole balance. So I'm going to go through this balance one thing at a time. The first thing I want to talk about is vibrational health. And I just really like the term vibrational health. Basically, to me, vibrational health means everything that we can't see. So things like, what's our emotional state? What are our beliefs about our health and about our illness? What are we doing? On a spiritual level? How do we feel like? Where are we at as far as our purpose on this earth? What our purpose is in our life. Where are we at as far as that goes? But vibrational health also can be the fact that our bodies are made up of, our bodies have so much energy as part of them. We don't really think of that. A lot of us think of our bodies as we're solid. We're just solid. We look at each other, you look solid, you look solid, you look solid. But the reality is that we're vibrating all the time. We've got many different kinds of electricity that go through our bodies, and different types of vibrations that go through our bodies. And also our bodies respond to various sound, light, heat, and other kinds of vibrations. So when I say vibrational health, I mean emotional health, spiritual health, mental health, and also the health in our in the vibrations of our bodies, in our nervous system, in our our chi, whatever it is that energy that makes our heart beat every second or so, that energy. So the next really important thing is genes and genetics. And so it used to be, even 10 years ago, a lot of doctors thought, well, even now they think so, but even a lot of functional doctors thought that everything's controlled by our genes. And patients would come to me all the time and they'd say, Dr. Laura, diabetes runs in my family. I'm doomed. Heart disease runs in my family. Obesity runs in my family. Cancer runs in my family. And though the idea was that these things run in their families, so they're doomed. And the reality is that there's a very, very, very small percentage, only a very small percentage of genetics that cannot be modified. We're talking eye color, hair color, skin color, although we're learning to modify those too, aren't we? All those things. But these are the things that we can't modify, or people who are born with things like Tay-Sachs or certain genetic disorders. But what we're finding is that most things that are handed down from generation to generation are modifiable. So there's genetic predisposition, and I also want to talk about epigenetics. Anybody here heard about epigenetics? Okay, so epigenetics is the kind of what happens to our genes while we live. So our genes respond to inflammation. Our genes respond to stress. Our genes respond to nutritional deficiencies. There are studies that are done on Holocaust survivors and their children and their grandchildren, and they find that there are certain changes in the genes that things that changed as a result of the stress that these people went through, and that actually were handed down from generation to generation. And these things are things that can be turned around. Like genes that are turned on can be turned back off. Genes that are turned off can be turned back on. So we're at the beginning of learning all of this, and it is so exciting. But just to know that what the genes that we're born with, yes, they may determine what we look like. But what we're seeing now is that the genes that we're born with, we can work with. Okay, another example would be genes that maybe we're born with, but we know something we can do about them. One example is the MTHFR gene. Anybody heard of that? So MTHFR gene, I know what it sounds like, but it's not. It's a gene that determines how well we can methylate certain molecules. And methylation is really important in detoxification, in our detoxification pathways, and also in our mood chemicals. So people who and I'm one of these people that I found out because I did a test, but people who have a variant in that gene are not able to methylate as easily as other people. Now, a lot of those people are walking around depressed, anxious, because their neurotransmitters are not quite in balance properly. Some of those people are walking around toxic because they're unable to get rid of the toxins, to detoxify. When we know that we have this gene, all we need to do is take methylated B12 and methylated folate. In fact, if you don't know whether you have this gene or not, maybe you'll want to just take methylated B12 and methylated folate, because if you are one of those people, and it really is, I think about 20% of people are affected, then you know, it might help your neurotransmitters, it might help your energy, and it might help your detoxification systems. So this is the cool stuff about genetics, and again, we're right at the beginning of it. But we may know only enough to be dangerous, but we may know a little more, like the MTHFR, for example, where we can actually help people. And then the other thing about genes is, I put a little shoelace here, because we can now measure. We're looking at, like, what causes aging, right? What causes people to age? What causes cells to die? And there are a lot of researchers who are trying to break the code there. And one of the things that they're looking at is the length of what are called telomeres, which, if you look at a DNA strand, it's kind of like the little ends of the shoelaces. And what happens is they get a little frayed and they shorten. They're called telomeres. So they measure telomere length. And another thing they measure is another form of methylation to measure age of DNA. But these are two things that, anyway, genetics, really important, and can play a role in whether one is tired, whether one is brain foggy, whether one is having difficulty with weight, that kind of thing. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out, which is really, really, really important, and this is the number one thing that I work with people on when I first meet them, because I wouldn't say that gut health I wouldn't say that gut health is the issue with everybody, but what I would say is, if anybody has a health issue, a long-term health issue that they're struggling with, you gotta look at your gut. Because the more we learn about the gut, and this is 30, 40 years of research now, and it's pretty solid information. But the more that we learn about the gut, the more we realize how important it is in overall health. So the gut is, so this is, I'll just show you, like, this is the inside of a healthy gut. Okay, so you just imagine that this is a tube, okay, and the food goes through here. Okay, these are the cells that line the gut, and then this is like the rest of the body, the blood vessels and the connective tissue and everything else in there. So these cells are very specialized, very, very specialized cells, and then they've got these little outpocketing here on the outside of on their outsides called villi, and then there are microvilli. And what these guys do is they increase the surface area. And little fact, did you know that the surface area of your small intestine is the size of a tennis court? Did you know that? Yeah, it's true. So we have a lot of surface area there. And so we have surface area there. We have a whole microbiome there. We have about 3 pounds of really good bacteria that are hanging out in here. And the more we learn about those bacteria, the more we learn how important they are in maintaining the health of the gut, but also in digesting food, in absorbing food, in creating our brain chemicals, our neurotransmitters, in reducing inflammation in our body, all of these things. The microbiome is super important. So exactly what good bacteria we have in there, really important, and the bad bacteria is not a good thing. But anyway, this is what a healthy system looks like, where the cells are right next to each other, and they have what we call tight junctions between them. So when stuff passes through, they are very smart, and they're absorbing all the things that we want to absorb. They're absorbing all of the good nutrients, the vitamins, the protein, the good nutrients, and they're leaving out the toxins, the preservatives and the additives and the dyes, the colors, all the pesticides, all that kind of stuff. But what happens is, if we eat stuff, let's say, that our body doesn't like, so maybe we are eating, lots of junk food, or we have toxins that are bad for us, or we're eating something that we're allergic or sensitive to, like for example, a lot of people are sensitive to dairy or to gluten. Okay, what happens is more like this. So you start to lose those tight junctions, you start to lose some of those microvilli, so you're losing the surface area for absorption, you're losing the tight junctions, so that when the toxins are going through, let's say, you go have a Twinkie, that Twinkie can make its way all the way into your body. Okay, so I used to test for leaky gut. I don't even test for it anymore because most people have it. Okay, so it's a good idea for us to treat ourselves for leaky gut once a year. And it's not rocket science. It's just a matter of doing the right things at the right time in the right order, that kind of thing. And if we can treat ourselves, then we really can reduce our inflammation. Inflammation, so anyway, so that's the gut. And the other thing to know is that 70% of our immune cells are in and around the gut. 70%! That's a lot of our immune system is right there in and around our gut. And so when things leak in, we develop sensitivities to them. We can develop allergies to them. The immune system doesn't like stuff that it doesn't like. And then it can create antibodies, and then we can have allergic reactions, and then we can become sensitive to those foods, or we can become sensitive to lots of different things. You know of people who have multiple chemical sensitivities, that kind of thing. When we look at COVID and the fact that so many people have gastrointestinal issues with long COVID, or they have lots of inflammation with long COVID, it has to do with COVID in a lot of people hanging out long term in the gut. So inflammation should be a household word. So I put gut and inflammation together because when you have a leaky gut, by definition, you're almost definitely going to have inflammation. And if you have inflammation, you would be best served by looking at your gut and healing your gut first and seeing if that can help with your inflammation. And I've had so inflammation, what does it look like in the body? So if we get a bee sting or something, you know what that looks like. Or if you have an infection or something like that, you know what it looks like. But other things that it looks like, if the inflammation comes through, like let's say it comes through the gut, and the inflammation is the cells, the immune cells in and around our gut are getting pissed off because we have a leaky gut. Well, that inflammation goes all over the body. It goes all over the body. And then it'll hit different places that might be our quote-unquote Achilles heel. So for some people, the thyroid is like the most sensitive gland in the body. Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or an autoimmune thyroiditis, the most common autoimmune issue and it causes low thyroid function. Inflammation causes it causes joint pain, it causes headaches, it causes brain fog, it causes belly fat, because when toxins get in there and inflammation gets in there, and the body needs to sequester stuff that is no good for it. What does it do? It creates a fat cell to store the stuff so that it gets it out of the way if we can't detoxify it. So inflammation is something to really pay attention to. And one of the things that made it really fun for me to get up in the morning and to be able to go in and see, you know, who got better, is that as people reduced their inflammation in my practice, what we saw, you know, brains coming back. I had an accountant who was about to retire at 56 because she said, I can't go through another season like this. My brain's not working. And she was about to retire. She went through our program, and at the end of the 6 months, she took a second job because she was feeling good. And it's not rocket science, but if we reduce the inflammation, a lot of the things that are bugging us, like fatigue and brain fog and autoimmune issues and inflammatory issues and asthma and just not feeling good, not being able to get off the couch, depression, you know, lots of these things have to do with inflammation. So if we can, I think, you know, have I said enough about inflammation? I think I've said enough about inflammation. Okay, so the next thing is, it's kind of a big one, is body systems integration. So body systems integration just means, it's kind of like what Dr. Bland was talking about, is that we have lots of different systems in our bodies. And everything affects everything else. Everything bounces off of everything else. So on one hand, I can tell you that our bodies, and this is an osteopathic principle as well as a functional medicine principle, because they're actually identical, is that the body has the innate ability to heal itself if it's given the right tools. The body wants to heal itself. The thing is that there are lots of different factors, and everything affects everything else. But when we get down to it, just like you're getting down the trunk of a tree to the base of the tree, and then you're getting into its roots, it all comes down to a few things. So right now we're kind of in the middle of the trunk, where it's like there's a lot going on here. So we're going to talk about body systems integration. So one body system that needs to be in balance. So these are the systems that kind of need to be in balance, really want to be in balance. And when they're not in balance, they bounce off of other systems and they cause everything to be cattywampus. So when you're feeling like, quote unquote, your body's messed up or there's something going on, it's not quite working well, the chances are that, you know, in that little star pattern that I gave you, you know, those, looking at all of those different things, I want you to just listen as I go through each of these things and see what intuitively, or, you know, comes to you as like, oh, this might be an issue for me. I want to look into this a little bit more. Or, oh, no, I don't really feel like this is an issue. Or, I've been told this is an issue for me, right? So, insulin and sugar balance, okay? Can't say enough about it because it's so important. This is an epidemic in our country. Basically, you know, pancreas makes insulin. When we eat sugar, the pancreas puts out insulin to get the sugar out of the bloodstream. And because we eat, 150 times more sugar than we did 200 years ago? I mean, literally, I think the number is 200 years ago, we ate 14 pounds of sugar per person per year. And we're now eating between 150 and 180 pounds of sugar per person per year. Okay, so, and what we're doing is we're having the sugar all day long. So when we're having the sugar all day long, we're having the sugar insulin thing going on all day long. What happens is the system burns out. It's called insulin resistance, and that's what leads to type 2 diabetes. But insulin resistance doesn't only lead to type 2 diabetes. It causes fat deposition. It causes imbalance in hormones. It causes plaque, you know, cholesterol issues and plaque to form on the arteries. When plaque forms on the arteries, that can affect also the brain, okay? So all these systems interact with each other. And while I'm talking about brain health, I forgot to mention when we were talking about gut wall function and do we have a leaky gut or not, we also want to think about the fact that we have a blood-brain barrier we have a membrane that protects our brain as well. And basically, what we know now is if we have a leaky gut, the chances are we have a leaky brain. If we have a leaky brain, chances are we have a leaky gut, because it's the same mechanisms that cause it. So when we're thinking about what's causing our brain fog, what's causing us not to be able to think so well as we used to, yes, it could be the size of our blood vessels or, that kind of thing. It could be plaques like with Alzheimer's, but it also could be the blood-brain barrier and inflammation in the brain, essentially. So it's pretty amazing, because when we are able to do something about it, it's wonderful. It's great to see when brains clear up and all of that kind of thing. So, okay, so the insulin sugar balance, hormones, thyroid, really important, and we don't have a lot of time to get into everything here. So I'm just going to give you like a couple sentences on each of these things, just so you know about them. So as I said, thyroid. Your thyroid's like your gas pedal. Okay, it's how fast your motor runs, and your thyroid's the most sensitive gland in the body, and it's affected by inflammation. It's affected by toxins, all kinds of things. It is also one of the most underdiagnosed and undertreated issues ever. So what I'm recommending to those of you who think you might have a thyroid issue, or you have been diagnosed with a thyroid issue and you're not 100% sure it's being treated appropriately, if you are not currently seeing a functional medicine practitioner or a naturopath, I urge you to do that, because the way functional medicine docs and naturopaths look at thyroids is vastly different than what the typical insurance-based doctor, conventional doctor, is allowed to do. They are just not allowed to do the same stuff. And I'm taught, this is years and years and years and years and years of practice. I mean, I've been working with thyroids for 30 years, and things haven't really changed that much. It's just that the conventional world is on a different planet than the functional world for thyroid. So if you're tired, I urge you to please get evaluated. Adrenal glands make cortisol. Okay, cortisol's like, if your thyroid's your gas pedal, cortisol's your on and off. It's your on and off switch. It's your key. Okay, and your adrenals is what keeps you standing no matter what. It's like, okay, let's say I'm totally exhausted. It's keeping me standing up here and talking. These are my adrenal glands. This is my cortisol. Okay, we live in a 24/7 world. Our cortisol, we've been, a lot of us have gone through lives where we're taking care of houses, we're working, we're taking care of family, we're taking care of parents, taking care of kids, have to get across town, have to do this, have to do that. We're in a 24/7 world, and then some of us also have the addiction to cell phones, or are on cell phones all the time, or on computers all the time. We have to pay attention to our adrenal glands, because our cortisol levels, they have a certain rhythm during the day. They're supposed to go down at night, and very often what happens in people who are just dealing with all this stress for years is their cortisol levels stay up and they don't go down. And then what happens after a while is the whole system just bottoms out, and we're just like exhausted. So if you're tired, have somebody also take a look at your cortisol. It's a very easy test, 4 saliva tests you can do at home. And one of my things is I want to make things easy for people. I have created resources. So my website, you can click a button, you can order a test for yourself, and you don't need a doctor's order to test your adrenal glands, to test your thyroid glands. So, there are ways of being able to do it. You might need some help interpreting it. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but you can get the testing. And then same thing with sex hormones. This is a whole another discussion, sex hormones. Basically what I want to tell you about that is that there's no evidence. The studies that came out in 2001 and 2000, the nurses' studies that came out that said that estrogen and progesterone cause breast cancer and cause heart disease, those studies were done wrong. It wasn't necessarily they were done wrong, they were interpreted wrong, and we've known this for 20 years. But every woman who was on a hormone replacement at the time that those studies came out was pulled off of it. And the reality is that the hormones that the studies were done on are synthetic hormones. They're pharmaceutical hormones. They're a Premarin, which comes from pregnant mares, from the horses, pregnant horses. That's the estrogen that was used, and the progesterone was a progestin, which is a synthetic progesterone. Those are dangerous because they cause inflammation in the body, and then they go into the receptors of the breast and whatever. Yes, but there are many studies that have been done on bioidentical hormones, which are the exact same hormones that women's bodies and men's bodies used to make. Using identical hormones, there's no evidence of increased risk of cancer. So again, a lot of people are suffering as we get older. Women, their hormones just like drop off a cliff at some point, and men, they go down slowly. But just know that there are ways of being able to look at your hormones and replace your hormones. And in fact, hormones are protective against breast cancer and heart disease, and they're protective to the skin, they're protective to the bones, they're protective to the brain, the whole cardiovascular system. So really something to think about. Okay. Another thing I want to mention is your autonomic nervous system, your fight or flight system versus your rest or digest system. Very important. We are made with both of these. We need that fight or flight because if we're being chased by a bear, we need to be able to get all the blood going to our muscles so that we can run as fast as we can. That doesn't happen that often. So really, we're supposed to be in rest and digest most of the time. That's where our bodies really want to be. The problem is in our 24/7 world, we're more in the fight or flight. Our nervous system is more in the fight or flight. So, and that system affects this, affects this, affects this, affects this. And I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. It affects this, 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 and that. Okay, so just letting you know. There are wearables that you can use to learn about your heart rate variability, things like meditation, and oh gosh, there are bunches of things, deep breathing and breathing exercises and that kind of thing that can bring your body into a better autonomic balance. This is, again, there's a lecture. Each one of these things is a lecture. But your immune function, your cardiovascular function, the amount of toxins that you have in your system, also huge, and different people detox at different rates. And you wonder why some people have, walk into a room, they're like, whoa, there's so much mold in here, I can't, or they're just so sensitive to certain chemicals, and other people are not sensitive at all. Some of that is genetic predisposition. Some of that is the ability to that body has to detox or not, or not, maybe not so well. Or it could be just somebody's more sensitive to that kind of thing. But we have, 75,000 plus chemicals have been introduced to our country since World War II. It's like we have no idea what's going on. And we can try really hard. Nashland's, it's a pretty clean town compared to many. We have lots of options in our food and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, we really, another thing we really want to pay attention to is our toxic load. And the word mitochondria, if you don't know what it is, the mitochondria is the powerhouse. Those are the powerhouses of our cells. And this is kind of what they look like. And they're what makes energy from matter. So it's, we talk about us being energetic beings. We run on ATP. We run on electricity. We are electric beings. We are. But we have our own power stations, and those are the power stations. So they take food, sugar, carbohydrates they prefer, but protein, fat, Well, they don't prefer, it works faster. But proteins and fats, they can take any nutrient and turn it into energy, turn it into electricity. That's pretty cool, isn't it? It's really cool. But the health of those mitochondria, we're learning so much about mitochondria, and coming up the pike, it's going to be really fun, because mitochondria they're responsible for the health of the cell, whether the cell lives or dies, the age of the cell, all kinds of stuff. And there's some evidence that Dave Asprey, I heard him talking the other day about there are studies now that are looking at do mitochondria like communicate with each other in some way throughout the body? Is it like a communication, the way birds will change flight all at the same time, that kind of thing? Are mitochondria like that? So the next thing to talk about is life events and lifestyle. So first off, life events. So functional medicine breaks them down into antecedents and mediators and triggers. So an antecedent is what came before. What happened when you were in your mama's tummy? And what happened, what was your nutrition like? What was your birth like? That kind of thing. A mediator is what's been brewing. Does your blood sugar run a little bit high? Do you have a little more weight on you that's kind of giving you some trouble? Do you have low-level viruses in your system that are causing some issues? While everything else is happening, what is the general status of? Are you missing a lot of vitamins and minerals that maybe would be a great idea to have? Is your body needing something that it doesn't have? That's what I mean by mediator. And then a trigger is something that happens. A trigger is like an accident, a car accident, childbirth is a trigger. Like anything that happens to our bodies and with our bodies, it could be considered a trigger. So we put all those things together, and that's another one of those of the things that matter. And then this is a whole nother 3 lectures, but lifestyle, really important. Sleep, getting the right foods, making sure you really, like, our foods are alive. Our foods are alive, and that they can nourish us. And moving our bodies. And if you ask any of these longevity experts, anybody, neurologist, cardiologist, pulmonologist, endocrinologist, anybody, you ask them what's the most important thing people can do for their health and their longevity, to live longer and live like a better health span, a healthier life, these 3 things. Getting good sleep, and that means 8+ hours a night. It's really 8 to 10 for most people. Some people can get away with 5, but start with 8, go up, go down, see where you're at. But that's really important, because that's when all the repair happens. That's when the detox happens. All that kind of stuff, really important. And moving our bodies helps all of that. So that's my little putting it all together. And so how to turn all of this stuff around. So here are the 5 steps that you can take. So when I transferred from Canva to PowerPoint, a couple things happened. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so one is you want to clean up what's going in. Okay, and I know a lot of people say it, and it's getting old, but it's really like the number one thing is that we need to clean up what's going on in. But some of that takes some education, right? Because we don't necessarily know what that may mean. We have to learn to read labels and learn what natural on a box means, or learn what organic means, or pastured, or whatever. We want to fix and balance the gut. We talked a lot about that, the importance of that. We want to remove the toxins, and we want to fix the inflammation. And that is, can't say more about inflammation. And I'm just coming from experience here, in that the people who had the biggest changes in my practice, they had them because they got rid of the inflammation. I mean, I'm thinking a woman who, like, all of a sudden she was a month away from a knee replacement, and all of a sudden she stopped having knee pain. Same thing with somebody's hip. I'm just going through it. Somebody with rash all over her body for like 10 years, gone. Somebody couldn't leave her house because she couldn't trust her gut, done. It's like, it makes a difference. It can really make a difference. So balancing, and then the fourth thing is balancing body systems. So all of that stuff that we talked about, the blood sugar, the hormones, mitochondria, the immune function, and then just know that everything affects everything else. And then optimizing micronutrients and lifestyle factors and vibrational and the vibrational health, the mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and vibrational health. So those are the 5 things. Maybe I'll go back. I'm going to just let you see them one more time. Clean up what's going in. And this all sounds really overwhelming, but the truth is that, well, in my old practice, I had a 4-month program. Now I have a 12-week program, and you can really get most of this done. You can learn about it and get most of it done. And I'm not the only person doing it. I'm not here to like sell myself. I'm here to let you know I'm here, and if it feels like an idea to talk about working together, I'd love to work with you. But just know that there are people out there that can help you to work through all of this. And it looks like a lot, but if things are done in the right order, in the right timing, in the right way, it's not that hard. So you want to clean up what's going in. So you want to learn all about that, make the changes, balance the gut, remove the toxins and fix inflammation. You want to balance all of your body systems. So if you haven't gotten your hormones checked, that's a really good idea. Your sex hormones, your thyroid, your adrenals. If you haven't, if you haven't looked into or thought about toxins in your body, that's something to think about. Heavy metals and mold and these kinds of things, because they can cause fatigue and brain fog and your body to feel quote unquote messed up. Okay. And then optimizing your micronutrients, your nutrient status. And again, it's not, there are thousands of supplements out there, but there are certain supplements that are really good to take every day. And I'm just going to tell you what I recommend everybody take every day. One is omega-3. Omega-3s are like so important for cardiovascular health, detoxification, immune system, brain. So important, omega-3 fatty acids. Vitamin D. I just put people on 5,000 IUs a day. Most people do fine on that. I do recommend people get their D checked once a year, preferably by a functional doctor or a naturopath, because what's normal in the in the conventional medicine world is pretty low considered pretty low in the functional medicine world. So omega-3, vitamin D, multivitamin mineral, a good one, and one with methylated B12 and folate if you don't know what your status is. And the fourth thing is magnesium. Everybody needs magnesium. So, 400 or 500 milligrams of magnesium a day. If your stools get loose, it could be that you already have enough magnesium, but if they don't get loose, then you probably could use the magnesium. Let's see. What am I missing? Vitamin C every day is a good idea too. So multivitamin, and a probiotic, really important. And a lot of us don't think about probiotics, but probiotics are really important because our gut flora, the unfortunate thing is when we add the probiotic, it doesn't stick so well. So probiotics are something we do want to be taking every day. The reason our microbiome gets messed up is higher cortisol, stress, sugar, birth. If we're C-section versus vaginal birth, we're usually messed up from the beginning. And the other thing is antibiotics and steroids. Like if you've ever taken an antibiotic or steroid or a birth control pill, it's really good to replenish your gut with good probiotics. So I'm going to go over, some of you got a chance to do the medical symptom questionnaire. I apologize that it came out light. So some people were not, like, didn't have their glasses or something. I really apologize about that. But I wanted to just, we're not open for questions yet because we're not finished yet, but I think I have about 7 or 8 minutes left. But I wanted to just give you the medical symptom questionnaire, the key to the results. And so that questionnaire was developed. Actually, nobody really knows who developed it, but everybody uses it. It's really interesting because I was during my certification at IFM. I said, "Who developed?" And they're like, "We really don't know, but we use it. Everybody uses it. It's free on the internet. It's called a medical symptom questionnaire, and it's just really nice for being able to track your symptoms. So being able to do an MSQ like once every 3 months, it's just a really good, just way to keep track of, okay, well, I'm not as good as I was a few months ago, or wow, I really made some changes. I did some good stuff. Because it's really hard to think back. It's hard to think back for me. It's hard to think back a week ago, right? To what, how I felt a week ago. But being able to go into some detail with this is a really good thing, and it's a nice, well-rounded thing to do. So you total up your score. If your score is lower than 15, you're in pretty good shape, which is really nice if your score is lower than 15. If you're 16 to 35, consider you have some moderate symptoms. There's some stuff that you can clean up in there. There's maybe some areas of improvement that you may be able to find. At 36 to 50, it's a little bit of a wake-up call. And then over 50, if you're over 50, then, well, you're here. So that's really good. Congratulate yourselves for being here. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. But no, get help. Get help somewhere, because what I really want to tell you, the most important thing is that there's help out there. And that, unfortunately, it's not in the conventional system. And unfortunately, it's usually not going to be something that you can get through your insurance. Because the problem is that functional docs and naturopaths, they spend more time with people. And they do tests that aren't covered by insurance. And when they're trying to butt their heads against the insurance system, it's crazy making. And I've tried it. I did it for like 9 years in Bend, when I lived in Bend back in the 90s and early 2000s. And it's like you just cannot do it. You cannot practice. I couldn't practice that way. So most of these systems are cash-based systems. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take us into Medicine 3.0. So we're putting it all together here. And these are just some of my happy people. And Medicine 3.0, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be part of the solution. And I have some really cool things coming down the pike that I'm not going to talk about right now, but just stay tuned. And if you want to be on our mailing list, please sign up. Where's the mailing list?
The clipboard was making its way.
Okay. Yeah, please sign up, because there's some really cool stuff coming down the pike, but I've learned not to not promise anything before I can deliver it. And but what I am delivering right now is I've taken a version of what we did at Rosa Transformational Health, and I've created an online version of it. And pretty soon, hopefully, I'm going to have a brick and mortar, but I don't right now. So everything's pretty much done online. But we meet. It's a 12-week program, and it includes supplements. It includes one-on-ones with me, and it also includes weekly group coaching in a cohort, which is really nice. And the whole idea is, and there are tons of videos that I created during the pandemic. And so it's a whole course. It's a little bit of a college course. It's like a 12-week college course for yourself about your body, about all of this stuff that we just talked about. And then it also takes you through a deep dive that takes you through getting the backhoe in there and cleaning things out. So it takes you through a food elimination protocol and a gut repair and a gentle enhancement of your detoxification systems, boosting your nutrients, learning more about optimizing your using food as medicine, and then also includes supplements for 4 months so that you can get through your program with everything you need, boosting your nutrients. Because the reason that there are supplements that are involved, and why do we need supplements? Because our bodies are because they've been dealing with what they've been dealing with for all of these decades, and we're constantly being inundated by all kinds of toxins and everything. We're behind the eight ball, so to speak. So what we want to do is we want to boost. We want to try and bring everything back to normal. We have to heal things, and then we have to bring our levels back to normal. After that, we can go back to the 4 or 5 things a day if everything's good. Okay? If anybody needs to go or stand up, please don't hesitate. So basically what I have going on is I have, and we're just finishing up now, but I have this Total Health Reset Boot Camp, which is what I was just talking about. On January 21st, I'm starting a weight mastery challenge with Coach Dee Dee Spitzer from Wild Rebel Wellness. On my website, and it's a simple one to remember, is rosahealth.com. You can see I do consultations for folks. They're mentoring consultations. Again, I'm not prescribing right now, working as a physician, but we can do an awful lot without that. And at times I will write prescriptions, but and then you can get testing. Just you can order it yourself. And supplements and just stay tuned for more and more workshops and classes. I've been increasing the number of workshops and classes over the last couple months. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to continue to do it. So really quickly, what's coming up the pike is that people are going to be empowered. This is Medicine 3.0. People are going to be empowered to have the knowledge to take care of themselves, to know how to take care of themselves. And testing is going to be available. It's crazy making that, $25 worth of blood sugar testing can tell you if you're, pre-diabetic or, if you have anything to worry about, $25. But, you can't get it done through your doctor. You just can't get it done. $25. So this kind of testing widely available, but it's going to be more and more available to people that you can just order off the internet, and good vetted information. That's the important thing. Is there's so much crap out there too. Is that whoever you find to work with, make sure it's somebody that you trust. Make sure it's somebody that is keeping up with the literature, with the research, that knows what they're doing, because there are a lot of crooks out there. So who are gonna sell you snake oil. And solutions, and then sharing of resources. And we can talk about this. I can keep this up during the if anybody has any questions. But this is all the stuff that's coming down the pike in Medicine 3.0, and the red light, infrared, growth hormone, peptides, rapamycin, NAD. These are all things that are now available. Who was it? Was it Dave Asprey? It was Dave Asprey. At the very end, he was having a conversation with one of the founders of A4M, and they had said to us, the one piece of advice we have is if you can keep yourself alive for 3 more years, 3 more years, like. They mean like don't get hit by a truck. Keep yourself alive for another 3 years, because the technology, the advancements in all of this stuff, in all of this, quote unquote anti-aging or longevity or healthy aging type medicine. I don't actually like anti-aging. It's like, but the whole idea of having a healthy health span and lifespan, a lot of this stuff is already available, but it's going to just become cheaper, more available, and just more accessible. So it's just kind of fun. And let's see. Oh, thank you. And I apologize. I went over. Oh, only 6 minutes. Okay. Okay. So. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah,
Thank you for a very interesting information and presentation.
you're welcome.
Two questions. First one would be the easy one. What kind of testing is there for inflammation?
Really good question. So it's an easy answer and a hard answer. There are a couple of things that are really simple, like CRP is most common. And it's a very inexpensive test. It stands for C-reactive protein. And so that's one way, that would be the quickest and quick and easiest way to look for inflammation. There are the harder answer is that there are a lot of other tests that can be done that are less specific, and it may not give you all of the right answers. The best thing that I've found is CRP for sure. Like everybody should have a CRP, and you want your CRP to be below 2. If your CRP is above 2, then you can consider yourself dealing with inflammation. The best way I found is to clean up the gut and do everything we can to reduce inflammation, so that and then to see how we feel with it. But definitely a CRP is that's pretty much the diagnostic.
And the second question is there really changes that will assist you with ADHD, hyperactivity, etc., that are not pharmaceutical?
Yes, and there again, there's more and more research that's coming out now. So there's a lot of evidence that ADHD, autism, any kind of brain alteration of function is you want to pay attention to inflammation for sure. Toxins, especially in kids, dyes, pesticides, herbicides, these kinds of things. Also, also sugar can play an enormous role in that. But there's a lot of research that's being done now with brainwave therapy and vibrational acoustic therapy, and another thing is omega-3s, like high dose omega-3s. You want to be a little bit careful because you can go a little overboard with them, but it's hard to go overboard with them. But higher dose omega-3 fatty acids, and then there are certain vitamins and minerals that can be super healthy super good for brain function. Vitamins, minerals, and there are also some nutraceuticals. There are actually, it's very interesting because when I was at A4M, I was going, the exhibit hall is enormous. There are like 300 vendors or something like that. And there were a number of people who had different things for ADHD. There are a number of what we call nootropics, which are nutraceuticals that help with brain function. So yeah, that I would be happy to have a conversation about that. There's just a lot. There's a lot out there, and I think it's what works for one and works, might not work for the other. But yeah.
I noticed there's a lot of anti-aging supplements out there, and I notice you have NAD on your board there. Currently, I'm taking NMN. Do you know what the latest is on that? I feel like I'm more functional and I have more energy when I take it.
Yeah.
And is it real, or am I just going through the placebo thing?
Well, placebo effect is 30%, and I think we should celebrate that rather than say, oh, that was placebo effect, because who cares, right? But no, the research on NAD and NMN are some of the things coming up the pike, and there were probably at least 10 vendors who were selling some sort of NAD product, and I bought one to try. most of the NAD products are NMN, which is a precursor to NAD, because NAD is hard to get into the body, hard to absorb, and then it clears really fast. So NMN is considered to be, it's almost turning into the gold standard for NAD. But NAD is it's one of the helpers of the mitochondria, those little powerhouses of our cells, and so the idea is that it's helping, it's assisting our mitochondria. There are other things, when you talk about anti-aging, a lot of those things are things that we want things that help our mitochondria. So there's another thing called PQQ, which is helpful. Coenzyme Q10 is wonderful. All the vitamins that I had talked about. And curcumin is another. I'm just thinking about things that are kind of less expensive but phenomenal. Curcumin, resveratrol is another one. Another thing coming up the pike that I didn't mention is nitric oxide. And there's a company called Berkeley Life there are lots of places that can sell nitric oxide like precursors, but nitric oxide is the stuff that helps the blood vessels to open up, and so it's really good for anybody who is at risk of cardiovascular disease, erectile dysfunction, brain, any kind of cognitive issues that are going on. Nitric oxide is another really good one to try. And the biggest thing that changes nitric oxide is beetroot powder. And so the cheap and dirty is you can go get yourself some beetroot powder, fermented beetroot powder. Those are, they're better weight, they're better, more efficient things than beetroot powder, but that's the cheap way to go. Another thing another word that you might want to pay attention to is phytosterols. Phytosterols are they're the antioxidants in foods and fruits and vegetables that give them the color that they have, the blues and the reds and that kind of thing.
That's not the same as polyphenol.
No.
No, that's different.
Yeah, phytosterol. And so anyway, that they're finding more and more of these. Actually, polyphenols. I think polyphenol might be related to phytosterol.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it might be.
I mean, with Gundry, when you put a little.
Actually, you are correcting me. I think we're talking about
polyphenols.
I think we're talking about polyphenols, not. Did I say phytosterols? I said phytosterols. Okay. Yeah, we're talking about polyphenols. Yeah, I confused myself. Polyphenols, and Jeff Bland is pushing one right now that is tartary buckwheat.
Yeah.
And that is super high. Yeah.
Let's say I guess it's called like a comprehensive metabolic test, a blood test where in addition to all of these vitamins you mentioned, other things are measured. And let's say that for all these vitamins you mentioned, I'm my results are listed as healthy or standard. Can I then kind of avoid all of the vitamins that my wife pushes in front of me
It's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it. So here's the thing. The standardized blood tests, the CBC, the chemistry panel, and the TSH, okay, they're the standardized blood tests. They're absolutely necessary. But I've always called them, and anybody who's been to any of my talks knows this, I call them the "Are you about to die" tests. Because those are the tests that like have to be. Are you a diabetic out of control? Is your acid base balance out of control? Are you these are the tests that have to be done to make sure you don't need to go to the emergency room. From a functional medicine perspective, if you were to add about 20 tests to that panel, you would know so much more about your body. So, for example, the CBC, the chemistry panel has a blood sugar, okay? Blood sugar tells us nothing. It goes like this all day long. Tells us nothing except if you're fasting. So the rule is if the fasting blood sugar is greater than 126, then you get to get a hemoglobin A1C and you get to get well, that's all you get. You get a hemoglobin A1C. What I would want you to get also is a fasting insulin. But anyway, I had to take a board. I had to like answer a board question on this. My family practice boards. If your blood sugar is 126 fasting, you have type 2 diabetes. So it's too late to prevent anything. I mean, you're still getting it to prevent what's happening down the line from there. But if 10 years ago, 20 years ago, somebody had gotten a fasting blood sugar and a hemoglobin A1C, which cost $8 if you're paying cash, and a fasting insulin level, you put those three things together and it is a roadmap to what your sugar insulin system is doing. So I can tell somebody, oh, it looks like you're never going to have a problem with your blood sugar. Or it looks like, you've got the very beginnings of a little bit of insulin resistance, so you're definitely going to want to pay attention to this. Or you're having hypoglycemic episodes and you're also having a little bit of insulin resistance. It's time to start paying, you've got to pay a little attention to this because that's higher risk for type 2 diabetes. If people know that, they don't ever have to get type 2 diabetes. And this is the thing that makes me crazy about the conventional medical tests because, yes, they're really important and I do them too. But it's just, if you just took the panel from here to here, which is what I do. I have a panel on my website that I've been using for years. It's $249. And it's the functional tests. And it's inexpensive because it's thousands of dollars of tests if you're going through the insurance system. But it's inexpensive if you're just paying cash. I mean, it's expensive for some people, but it's relatively. And the company, I use a company that gives you a functional health panel. They give you a whole report, a 17-page report that goes over every single detail. It says, oh, your alkaline phosphatase is low. That tells me that blah, blah, blah. So these things are really, anyway. So I recommend that people, and then the thyroid's another thing, like the thyroid. TSH, it's like you can't tell anything by TSH, and then that's all the insurances are paying for. Or a TSH and a T4, you cannot tell anything. The active thyroid hormone is T3, free T3. So you'd need a free T3. How much does it cost? Well, I can get you 4 tests. I can get you a TSH, a free T3, a free T4, and a total T4, which are like my 4 tests that I just do, following up on people. $24.50. Wow. At least that's what it was a couple of years ago. It might be $27 now. I don't know. But and then have you ever has this person ever had antibodies done to their thyroid? Doctors don't even do thyroid antibodies anymore because they say, well, everybody's got them, and there's nothing we can do about them anyway. But did you know, I had a 32-year-old woman who had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, she was one of my first patients, and I was scared because she's 32 years old, and she was a physical therapist. She had to quit her job. She couldn't get off the couch. She wanted kids. She's getting older. Didn't think she could handle. She couldn't even get off the couch. She's like, I can't be a mom. And we tested her. She had really high antibody levels. And she did all the things. We put her through a food elimination protocol, gut repair, gentle detoxification process, and we gave her there are specific things that you can do to help tonify the immune system so that it's not like going bonkers all the time as in autoimmune issues. And her levels went down, her thyroid normalized. And we had her for 6 months. And at 6 months, she came and she was pregnant and thrilled in going back to work. And, but in conventional medicine, there's nothing you can do about autoimmune issues except tamp them down with these medications that also tamp down your immune system and make it more of a chance you're going to get COVID or other infections or cancer. And so your second question, do you need to take all the supplements? That's a really good question. So I use supplements in my practice because, as I said, our bodies have been going through stuff for a lot of years. And if we want to turn things around, we do sometimes need to add, kind of use extra, flood our systems a little bit for a short period of time. The question about, are you taking the right ones? And, there are a lot of good things out there and there's a lot of crap out there. And that's one of the things that I do with the people I work with, because you don't want to be spending all your money on crap. There is a lot of good stuff out there, but there's also,
What about the vitamin C?
Vitamin.
Linus Pauling.
Hey, I think he was onto something. When I feel like something's coming on, I take 1,000 milligrams an hour to bowel tolerance, which is,
And of liposomal vitamin C
right, because
versus
it's
just
right,
vitamin C.
right, and it's the most absorbable. It's more
Yeah.
absorbable, yeah.
But if you're eating if you have a good diet,
That's what my father used to say. And in 1951, when he graduated medical school, that was true because everything was organic, and then people rotated their crops and everything. Nowadays, the quality of an orange is not what it was in 1950. And so we're just not getting the nutrients that in our foods. If we're super careful and we're juicing or but it's really hard to get everything you need. Zinc, magnesium,
but again,
selenium.
just getting back to the whole thing, what about numbers? We depend on numbers so much.
So there's also
So
there's also a test called it's called metabolomics or NutriVal, depending on how you do the samples. But that's another one on my site that's available to you. And the one on my site, they just send you, it's a blood spot, so you just prick your finger, and then it's a urine test. So it's everything you can do at home, and then you send it out, and it tests your test nutrient levels, and it'll tell you, are you way over the top with, with all your.
Getting back to the thyroid, wasn't there a period, maybe it's still alive, of surgeons, just as you have a enlarged thyroid and boom, they remove it? It was kind of like an epidemic.
There have been many epidemics of surgeries, and as I said, you saw the timeline, like 150 years compared to 300,000 years. It's like there are so many. Did you know that doctors are like the third leading cause of death? Third leading cause of death. That is iatrogenic issues, medications, surgery errors, hospital errors. Third leading cause of death. We have to be paying attention. It's just like, if this doesn't wake us up, like, what?
Are there some institutions that you have faith in, like maybe the Mayo Clinic or Harvard? No.
They've drunk
Well, the Mayo Clinic came out and criticized this automatic removal of enlarged thyroids.
Yeah, so.
They have an active research program.
Right, so what happens is, we find a cure, the cure is like this, and it almost kills people, but it works, and then they say, well, maybe we could do the cure, like, they just, same thing now with DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ. It's like a stage 0 breast cancer for women. They used to, mastectomy or lumpectomy and radiation, and now they're saying, well, maybe now we can watch, So the pendulum swings, but I can't tell you how many things. My dad, he wouldn't use a medication for 20 years. He would wait 20 years. He's like, I'm going to wait 20 years, or on some of the more important ones, he'd wait 5 years. But he wanted to see what the effects were. Like, we're looking at Ozempic now. Ozempic, 40% of the weight loss is muscle mass in most people. So, and they don't necessarily get it back. So and so they may be helping their weight, but they're losing all the muscle and they're also losing bone. And so the pendulum just I mean another recommendation is like don't try stuff right away when it comes out, because you want to watch what's happening to everybody else first, and, Yes.
What do you think about methylene blue for helping mitochondria?
There is really good research on methylene blue. I was kind of scared of it, so I've actually really I've gone to a couple of lectures on it recently because I really wanted to educate myself, and it's actually really pretty safe, and it actually is. It's promising. Yeah. Well, is that what's happening here? It's very pretty. I love your methylene blue. Yes.
I had a couple questions. One on, you were talking about the NMN and NAD. What about the NAC? There's been some stuff in the news about that. Do you feel it's better to go to NMN or the NAC?
I think they're two really different things. NAC stands for N-acetylcysteine, and so N-acetylcysteine is a precursor to glutathione. Glutathione is super important for our detoxification systems. Like we have 6 different ways we detox, and our type 2 detox 6 different ways, and glutathione is one of those ways. But it's how we detox a lot of stuff. So NAC. That's the cheap way to get glutathione in your body because it's a precursor to glutathione. The better way is to get glutathione into your body, and there are better and better ways. Liposomal nutraceuticals can be absorbed much more easily. And so there are some really good liposomal glutathiones now. There are not creams, but probably like a gels and oils, and then there are things you can just take into your mouth. Sprays.
My other question was, what about, we've learned so much with keto and low carb and stuff. What about the work from Dr. Ray Peat? What do you think of that?
I'm not familiar with that. Ray Peat?
Dr. Ray Peat, he's saying that the body actually does better with carbs instead of fat, and which is very contrary to what we've just been practicing. Of course, the cycles go on, but he did a lot of research, and certain aspects are following Dr. Peat's protocol now, and it's like a lot to switch back again, so I'm trying to figure that out.
So those are the guys who are on Facebook all the time?
On the
Or
web.
Facebook pushing carbs. I don't know. Yeah, like that. The answer to that for me, and we're about to do a weight challenge, a weight mastery challenge. Everybody is different, and nobody likes to hear that. Everybody wants to know, like, this is gonna work, this is gonna work. Right. But everybody is different, and I think part of the thing is figuring out what works for each individual body. And so I'm not throwing, I throw Ozempic under the bus, but there are natural GLP-1. GLP-1, it might be useful to use GLP-1 agonists, but there are natural ones that can work. And bitters are natural GLP-1 agonists. And anyway, everybody's different. Everybody's
Right.
different.
It's
So
just a whole new
yeah, I want to pay attention to it and check it out, but I haven't yet.
Dr. McCall is pretty big on it.
Yeah.
He likes to try new things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did Rosa Transformational with you all those
Yes,
years
you
ago.
did! It's really good to see you.
COVID. Yes, I wasn't quite sure if it was you. I mean, that's what happens to it, a young brain. But I just am reading or listening to an extraordinary book that backs up, and you would be the on the court piece, and that's Casey Means. So Casey and Callie Means are brother and sister. And Casey went on to Stanford to get her MD, but pretty much jumped out of that world after she went through a residency and whatever, just for everything that you said. And Casey, her brother, went into pharmaceuticals. And if you go online, you can see them being interviewed this last year. So Casey's book is just this year, 2024, and it was really inspired by their mother dying over a 20-year period because she didn't get what you just said, was the test by test by test. What'd she die of at the other end? Pancreatic cancer. But all of these markers along the way, you know, when it could have been this and the doctor said, oh, you're just fine, you just go ahead, your test reads well. It's a great read and listen to with so much information. And then you just, I mean, I'm like, oh my God, because to be supported in one's own community with all of that. And she lists the tests that you've got to have. Like, you know, you demand your doctor to get to have these, or like you're providing these sources for some of them. So I just say it's called Good Energy.
Oh, okay.
So
I'll
Good
check it out.
Energy, it just came out this year,
Yeah.
2024, and it's a jaw dropper in terms of just chapter by chapter, and you bet, I mean, it's like a great opening for
Good.
different.
Well, I think if more and more of us are getting out there and just
Yeah.
telling what we see as the truth, because it's craziness out there. It's just craziness, and it's what's so crazy to me is that everybody has the power to have so much more control over their health than most people do. And you know, that's what I'm here for. And I spent the last 3 years thinking I was going to go online and do the online, and you know what? I love this community, and I miss people, and I think I needed a couple of years off. I just needed to regroup, but I'm here, and there are a lot of people who are starting, a lot of doctors who are starting to come out, and another thing that I'm doing is I have a course. Another thing I did over the pandemic was to create a course for clinicians, and so I have another cohort starting this winter, and you know, just trying to get more people educated, more docs educated.
You can tell how
more-
lazy she is.
Yeah, right. Well, she's,
Then you have to pick me up off the floor sometimes too, but yeah, but thank you.
yeah, well, I mean, it is just like an answer to prayer in terms of, you know, how would one go about, I mean, that be self-empowered, but in fact, we need support, and we need coaching, which in many ways, that's what you're positioning yourself as a health coach. And anyway, it's really exciting because, I mean, Casey just, you know, goes right down the line, and insurance companies are a huge culprit. Everybody's wondering why, you know, that darling young 40-year-old man got assassinated. You know, there is a rage about insurance companies. And what was fascinating in one of the chapters in Casey's book a couple of nights ago, as I'm listening on Audible, is going back to, and you know this, Laura, about you know, really the turn of the century, 1900, where it's a doctor, somebody that Rockefeller latched onto and changed and threw out everything about naturopathic and what your indigenous people knew, threw it all out. And there wasn't a medical school in America that could have anything going on around osteopathic and, you know, naturopathic and homeopathic and all of that. So, you know, it finally answered for me, why in the hell are we at this place where who's in charge? But and then there's World War II, and that was a lot of pharmaceutical shit going on around the camps in Germany that all came over in the 50s, you know, and it's just like, no, we've got to stand up
And then
say,
in the 1950s
no.
and 60s,
The 50s
and
and
then the
60s.
whole, the guy who did the big study on fats, like misinterpreted
yes.
it, knew he was
What kind of
misinterpreting
fat?
it, and he created our food pyramid that killed millions of people. Like the original food pyramid killed millions of people. Carbohydrates, like eat the most carbohydrates. That's at the bottom of the pyramid. And So, but, so yes, there's a lot of unwinding to do, there's a lot of unwinding to do, and what I'm learning is like, let's look at the facts behind the facts behind the facts, and the story behind the story behind the story, because, yeah, on everything, not just health. The other quick thing I wanted to say about the testing, when she says demand your doctor order the test, be careful about that if you are billing insurance, because your doctor might say, yeah, I'll order the test, but I don't have a diagnosis code for it, or your insurance company may say, well, we're not paying for that. And I had somebody order a vitamin D test, like she asked her doctor for a vitamin D test, and she got charged $1,000 for it. It is a $34 test, and she had to pay it. Somebody who worked for me. She's like, oh, I think I'm going to go get my vitamin D check because I have a doctor's appointment. And then she came back. She's like, they charged me $1,000.
I won't mention Mayo Clinic, but what about Dr. Andy Weil and these universities?
Yeah,
that
Andy
know
Wells,
issue?
the integrative medicine doc. Thank you guys. Thank you
Thank you.
everybody for being here.